Hey YouTube, I'm just out here doing some shooting today. I thought I might make a video. I watched an interview last night with Colion Noir, but I was watching a video of him on the Adam Carolla show. And of course the topic of AR-15s and assault rifles come up.
Some of the big misconceptions.
Well, mechanically, generally speaking, is the distinction between an assault rifle and an AR-15. So in some of these more public shootings that we've had where a rifle was used, those are AR-15s. That is the civilian version of an assault rifle, which is what soldiers use. And the distinction being with an assault rifle, you pull the trigger once and it will completely deplete the magazine. As fast
as you hold it back.
Yeah,
full automatic.
So imagine if you had 30 rounds in a magazine. You pull the trigger once, you could dispense all 30 of those rounds by pulling the trigger once and holding it.
Yeah, I've talked to some special ops guys and stuff, and they just go, yeah, we never set ours to full automatic because it's a waste. It's like they want to hit their target. They don't want to have to refill it every 1.3 seconds or whatever it takes. You go full automatic, and you're through your whole clip in 2 seconds, right?
And I think largely the reason why people make such a big deal about it is because we're kind of a victim of our own. It's partly it's the theatrics of seeing a fully automatic gun go. You know, it's pretty grandiose. It's like, oh my gosh, it's loud and it's rapid, it's very quick. While at the same time seeing what we see in the movies. You know, and so people tend to correlate fully automatic with more lethality.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Wow. Hey gun people. Adam Carolla, a comedian by trade and a self-proclaimed agnostic on the Second Amendment, just laid out something every American who owns a firearm needs to understand, and that's the importance of individual marksmanship. It doesn't matter if you have a fully automatic M240 or a semi-automatic AR-15 or a fully automatic M4. It doesn't matter what you are holding if you cannot hit what you are aiming at.
How many guns are out there in circulation as far as we know here in the United States?
We're pushing or past 400 million.
Right. So Ted Nugent has 200 million.
Right.
Then there's everyone else who has one gun. No, it's a weird number, but I think the average gun owner has like 11 guns or something. Like it's a thing. It's like I'm into cars. I got a bunch of cars. I don't have 1.5 cars. I have a bunch of cars. Wait, do they know what the average guy, I mean, the guy who's into it has?
You know, there's a bunch of different stats. There's some stats out there, like Bill Maher even brought it up, the idea that the vast majority of the collection of firearms are in a very small number of people's hands. And generally speaking, most people have maybe 1 or 2 guns. I think personally it's kind of hard to say because there are so many guns that are just inherently unaccounted for.
Right.
In terms of just, you know, like you can take all the surveys you want, but at the end of the day, there's still kind of this idea of I'm not going to let you know what guns or how many guns I have.
But then you also have this fringe group that I personally do not believe is as fringe as it sounds. And hear me out. When you visit the dark realms of the internet, the survivalist forums and boards and the political, ideological chat rooms, the very divisive areas of the internet, you stumble across the unique understanding that many Americans have extra AR-15s, not entirely because they're just awesome and you want to have them, but also as tools to hand out to friends, family, colleagues. The ones who are prepping, so to speak, they also tend to prep firearms and ammunition, not just for themselves, but for anyone who would be an ally to their cause. But it's just an interesting conversation to have. I'd love to hear in the comments or have a discussion about that somewhere. Let's continue.
Existential crisis? Like, what can be done? Like you said earlier, the carnage. I think we're all on the same page. We just want less of the carnage. What common sense, realistic things can be done to stop either the wrong people? I want every law-abiding, responsible gun owner to have as many guns as they want. I don't want the crazy people and the bad people to get them. What can we do instead of being obstructionist, which you have to admit the NRA can be a little obstructionist when it comes to this kind of stuff. What can we do? What can be done to stop carnage?
You have to admit the NRA is a bit obstructionist. Holy cow, someone grabbed this guy an award. The entire point of the NRA is to be an obstructionist organization, and many, if not most, NRA members have been horrified at how little obstruction they've put up in the past. When you look at the NRA's track record over the last 30, 40, 50 years, it has actually not been a very impressive obstructionist organization. For Americans who understand their gun control history, understand that Americans were legally able to purchase and own fully automatic rifles, submachine guns, and general purpose machine guns. Americans were able to own such equipment. And in fact, you're still legally able to. There's just so much red tape and a pain in the butt, and it's so cost prohibitive that many Americans simply choose not to.
People who want to cause carnage, they want to cause mass carnage, their first thought is a school, a very soft target. Let's harden them up. Great, that's awesome. Less school shootings. Wouldn't that person then be like, all right, I'm going to go shoot up the Trader Joe's, or I'm going to go shoot up the library?
Well, LAPD shoots up the Trader Joe's.
Whatever the next soft target is, would it not be smarter to look at the other end of that equation, which is let's keep guns out of the hands of the wrong people?
Now, on paper, that sounds amazing.
It does.
So what can be done to stop senseless carnage? Well, it always takes a good guy with a gun to stop a bad guy with a gun. It really is that simple. Take, for instance, a mall shooting that occurred, I believe, in Seattle, Washington, a couple years back. Of course, it was a gun-free zone, but I believe it was a military veteran or current duty military, I can't remember, inside of a gun-free mall when someone did open fire in that mall. The mere presence of this guy with a gun was enough for the shooter to commit suicide. And this is often what happens when police do eventually show up on scene and begin clearing the area and finding the perpetrator. There are numerous instances of such occurrences, and it seems like no matter how much evidence is factually correct and can be proven in favor of nationwide conceal carry, of nationwide armed citizens for defense in criminal situations, the left still ignores this. Like, we need to do more background checks. We need to limit this, limit that. Well, here's a problem with that. That utopian vision that you can just background check yourself into having a safe society is an illusion. Take, for instance, the Soviet Union. If you were ever a political dissident in the Soviet Union, what do you think the fastest way to the Gulag was? Do you think there was a wonderful trial and a wonderful showing of justice? You would simply just be labeled crazy, psychotic, delusional. You are a crazy person, off to the Gulag you go. How dare you be a dissident? This is the danger when you start talking about background checks, going deeper into finding psychological issues. Everyone has psychological issues. Hell, are you kidding me? There's, 50,000 definitions and reasons for psychological issues? But guess what? Gun owners tend to be the most calm, collected individuals in the country. You want to look at some psychological issues, look at the hard left. Now, don't get me wrong. As it stands today, when you go to legally purchase a firearm, there is a small psychological background in that you must certify that you have never been involuntarily committed. That's understandable. That is your reasonable gun control legislation. We already have it. There's no need for more. Hear me out. Because each step you take in the direction of combining possible psychological issues to the ability to exercise a constitutionally protected right, you start treading in some very dangerous categories. You're going in a very dark place. How long before a tyrannical government would just label everyone who's a dissident as being somehow insane? What if some Hillary-like candidate were to become president and millions of gun owners start to go crazy, start to have their screaming at the sky moment as they realize all their constitutionally protected freedoms are at sudden risk? What happens when someone like a Hillary Clinton could simply say these dissidents are crazy? If you can just call someone crazy and take their gun, you just immediately took away their rights. You took away their ability to resist tyranny, to defend themselves from from tyrannical government, from coyotes in the wilderness. All on the basis of what some psychiatrists may say. Then who vets the psychiatrists? Who vets government officials making claims on American citizens? This isn't commonly thought about, but it needs to be thought about, because every time there's a mass shooting, this exact issue comes up. Psychological health. How can we screen for this? Any measures taken to screen for that are automatically an infringement, because they can be misconstrued, they can be used for evil and oppression and tyranny by merely claiming you're crazy. Does anyone here think that the Nazis and the Soviets did not use psychology as a weapon against dissidents? Pick up a history book on that one. That's one of the easiest ways to throw someone in the gulag. And now, even gun-owning Second Amendment supporters are starting to concede psychological screenings, because they know they're not crazy, and they know the vast majority of gun owners are not crazy. In fact, gun owners tend to be the most self-aware individuals in the country. They tend to know more about law than some police do. They tend to be very careful in what they do, what they say, how they act.